So conflict means a relationship isn't healthy. As most of us know who've been in a long-term relationship that isn't possible, but you would be shocked by the amount of people that I see year in, year out, day in, day out, who really are conflict averse. They just believe the presence of conflict is something that must be avoided at all costs. And so if I have a couple who comes in and they're talking about, oh my gosh, we disagree about everything, we always seem to be, at each other, I'm not as interested in the presence of the conflict as I am in what they do with it. So I'm really looking at, is there an effective way for them to express themselves and resolve it? When Laura and I have a couple who come into the office and they will often brag about how they never fight. Like, and our antenna go up and now we're really nervous. Because that is, in a lot of ways, more of a challenge than the couple who is already kind of knowing they're passionate about what they want, what they don't want, and they're putting it out there and they're expressing it. The couples who aren't saying anything, usually it means they don't have an avenue for expressing what they're feeling, and so a lot of their behaviors are fear-based. So in a relationship, the ability to work through issues is really what can be such a big part of bonding and strengthening the relationship. Another number 2 relationship myth is that we should have the same views on everything. Certainly it's helpful and indeed healthy if you have a common core of overlapping central core beliefs. But the reality is we're different people, we are brought up differently, we're different genders, we have different personalities, we have different beliefs, so we're pretty diverse. So the idea that we have to agree on everything is not true. But that belief is obviously stems from almost myth number 1, which is that we shouldn't have conflict. So so therefore, if we can't have conflict, then we must agree on everything. Because if we agree on everything, then we'll never have to disagree. Well, the reality is that we find in healthier relationships there's diversity. You have a core overlap on core beliefs, but beyond that, it's just not possible. I often say, a marriage is like, Eastern culture and Western culture trying to come together. They are so different, and to believe that there is going to be a majority of overlap just isn't realistic. It really boils down to both people accepting and respecting the differences. Myth number 3, a happy and fulfilling relationship requires having common interests. So, Laura and I see this quite a bit. Yes, it is helpful, especially in the beginning, if you have common interests. It helps when you start dating, figure out what you're going to do on a Saturday night. And yes, it is great if you have.
But in the beginning, it's like, I'll do what you want to do. What do you want to do? And then when you get married, it's like, well, I don't want to do that. We did it when we dated.
Yeah, bait and switch, I think they call it. But the reality is what Laura and I look for in healthy couples is looking for that balance between individuality and this kind of relationship identity. So it is important that each individual is doing things on their own that they find fulfilling, as well as there are activities that you can engage in as a couple that you both find enjoyable as well. So a myth itself is that there is just a checklist, if you will. There's just certain criteria that you can check off, and then boom, you have a healthy and a happy relationship. So that myth itself is dangerous. The idea that you can just kind of superimpose one generic standard on every relationship is a dangerous one. So that's what you get. Well, so-and-so down the street do this, and my parents did this. The reality is yes, Laura and I certainly, when we are working with couples, we do have, I think, a core common set of criteria, for lack of a better word, that we look for. But beyond that, it is so specific to the couple. When I work with couples, I tell them no one in the entire world will ever have a relationship just like yours. So, they'll ask me, well, what do you do in your relationship? It doesn't matter. It's not about that. I said, what works for us doesn't mean it has to work for you. So it really is understanding that the two of you create the relationship that is meaning and value to you, and you have to determine what it is that you want. There's no perfect checklist. There's no comparing to someone down the street or anyone else. It really is something that you've got to believe in creating for your own. As long as I try not to do what my parents did, I'll have a healthy relationship. And I hear that a ton just in terms of parenting too. Oh, as long as I don't do, what my mom or dad did. The problem is it becomes difficult to define something healthy by the absence of something, right? So when I work with couples and we talk about a healthy relationship, a lot of times they'll come in and they're saying, well, we don't want to argue anymore. We're tired of being angry with each other, and we're et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is very true. We tend to come in like when you go to a doctor, you're talking about your aches and your pains. But the difference is we define where we want to go by the presence of positive, healthy behaviors. We can't define where we're going just by saying, don't do that. So if we say, well, I'm not going to do what my parents did, the key here is we have to be healthy. As individuals, we define what we want, we figure out a way to express and advocate for our needs. So it's not about what not to do, it's defining what works for you. It's you being healthy and knowing what you want. Myth number 6, there must be romance. There should always be romance. Well, romance is easy and natural, and as we'll talk, it's physiologically based often in the beginning of a relationship, but it naturally declines in long-standing relationships. From again a physiological standpoint, but also from an emotional and psychological one. I mean, relationships can go stale. I mean, it is just the reality. No relationship is impervious to it, and the absence of this kind of fiery excitement and passion and romance that you have in the beginning certainly does not mean that there's anything wrong with your relationship. But it does mean it's an indicator, it's a sign that we've got to do something different, and we'll certainly talk about that a little more. If I'm with the right person, I really shouldn't have to work hard at this. How often do you hear that? I hear that a lot.
I told you I loved you, I married you. Why do you need it again?
Yeah. Why is this so hard? It shouldn't be this hard. I hear the things all the time. So I don't know if hard is even the right word, but it's an interesting word because I think it usually indicates that someone feels that having to be intentional and put the effort into a relationship must be, it's just hard, it's difficult. And the reality is it takes effort, it takes work. Anything that you do in life, I mean, if you think of any accomplishment you've had to have a sustained effort and intention to make it happen. So, as Laura was saying, sometimes we put a lot of effort in the courtship stage of our relationship, right? Think of how intentional you were. Maybe a lot of the things that we'll talk about today, you were certainly doing that, but it's kind of the idea that, relationships would just be self-regenerating without any work on our part is certainly not true. Being in a healthy relationship means that my partner is going to know my needs and meet them all the time. So if I had a dime for every time I heard someone say, if I have to ask for it, I don't want it. If I have to tell them what I need, what's the point? And that one just still blows my mind. I'm thinking, really? Since when did loving someone means that you could read their mind, that you were supposed to know? And this is a true story. I had a couple of them. They had this huge argument about where they were going to go to dinner. The husband had said, hey, you want to go to dinner? She's like, yeah, great, and he says, well, how about we go have Mexican? And she just lost it. She had told him last week that she hadn't had Italian food in a long time, and really lived more, next time they go out, really wanted to get Italian. Now, he didn't think about it. So she took that as a slight, that he wasn't paying attention, he didn't care, and that he was selfish. The reality is this. It is no one else's responsibility to get your needs met other than you. You can't expect anyone in your life to be a better advocate for you than you will be. But she was like, you've got to be kidding me, and all he was doing is advocating for himself. He felt like a burrito, apparently. And he but it's this core belief, this expectation that in order to really show someone that you care about them, you have to know what they're thinking. It is one of the most detrimental beliefs with the couples that I work with, is this idea that they should just know. Well, we've been together forever, we've had to know. You've got to be willing to every single time put your need out there pretty unapologetically. And usually your partner is happy to know. I mean, they just want to know. Then it's like, oh, all right, and he goes, well, she just told me. I would have been like, fine, I didn't really care where we ate. But it was like a really big. The last one is all we need is love to make marriage work. So the old, I think it was George Harrison and Naperville. All we need is love, right? Or no, John Lennon. So the reality, it kind of plays off of this idea that we shouldn't really have to work at this. You know, love is just enough. Now, love is a great motivator to help us work through conflict and work through stressors. But the reality is that way of thinking can often lead us to just kind of brushing things under the rug and just saying, it will all work out. And the important thing is the effort and the intention and the energy that you put in a relationship. That's what builds connection, intimacy, and trust. So,
The myths.
there's our myths, yeah.
Well, another part of the relationship that can get really confusing is the biological piece. So I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. But first of all, Cheryl and I love working and helping couples. It's something we're passionate about, and it's because we know and have heard it enough that people have said they're messy, relationships are messy, they're complicated, they're confusing, but they're worth it because we all seem to be in it. So we all wanted to know more about it, and I think sometimes it's because we don't understand them. And I really think if people had some more information that it would be really helpful. Because when people come in, they talk about a relationship. We want to fix our relationship, that thing right there. Well, it's not a thing and it's not a noun. Relationships are about relating, which is a good thing because it's more fluid. When people say I want to fix my relationship, it's kind of a disconnect. It's out there, and usually that's a code. It's their fault. Fix them. So when we understand that it's more fluid and it's about relating to each other, so when we can take ownership that how we relate to people, we then can choose what we say, what we do, and what we think. But if you're saying fix the relationship, that feels complicated, messy, and confusing. But we can say I then can choose what I want to do, say, or think. It becomes possible. So that's one thing that's really important. So if that's how we're going to look at it, that means that we all need to take responsibility for our own happiness. And what happens sometimes is couples come in and they want to do marital counseling, but we have to tell them they're not ready. And they're kind of like, what do you mean we're not ready? We're here to fix our relationship. Well, because they come in and they're not self-aware. And that's really important to know. If you're not aware of your emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical needs, it's going to get lost and it's going to be fix the relationship and not what do I need to do to help repair the relationship or make it better. So people really need to do that assessment. And one thing that's important to know is when research from Harvard shows happiness is mainly relies on our social connections, relies with connecting. So connecting, growth, and contribution are the three variables, and I try to simplify it as much as I can with people, that creates our happiness. Because when we work with someone, or you are in a relationship, when you're happy, it is invaluable to all your relationships. When I'm happy, I know I'm a better spouse, I'm a better therapist, I'm a better mom, I'm a better employee, I'm a better employer, I'm better at everything. So if I'm not happy, there's no way I can really bring happiness into the relationship, right? So that's the same with passion. If I'm not passionate, it's going to be hard to create passion in the relationship. It's kind of like, I want to make you laugh, but I'm not laughing. So it will be very difficult to do that. So I'll work really hard to try to make you laugh, but I need to really look at what do I need to do to make myself laugh. So it's really doing that assessment of what do we need to do to take care of ourselves emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually, because that makes us a person. And there's usually two people in a relationship, so you need to bring that and really look at that together.
Just to jump in, I just to echo that. I tell couples, I said a healthy relationship doesn't make happy individuals. Healthy, happy individuals make for a healthy relationship. And too often people are coming in and saying, as you said, they need to do something different or make this better. And really when marital therapy is, and a couple therapy is most effective is when each person is just ready to look at themselves and really unconditionally going to do the things that are healthy. So in other words, too often we'll say, well, in a relationship, well, I'll start changing when you do this, or I'll change when you appreciate it, I'll change when you reciprocate it, I'll change when you acknowledge it. So we have these long lists of conditions that pull us further and further away. And so I talk with couples about being committed to change unconditionally. I say right is right is right, right isn't just based on the response you get to right. So it's knowing what's right, it's being committed to that, being a healthy individual, and organically, the changes just start to happen.
So it doesn't become so messy and complicated and confusing. So with that, I want to take an example biologically, how we're different. I'm going to take one example that's probably a typical one that, again, this might bring some awareness to you all, so be prepared that you may have to change some things. So first of all, men and women are different. We'll go with that. Men have more testosterone, women have more estrogen. With those, we act differently. So I'm going to start with this scenario where it's just a moderate stress, just moderate stress. It's not a really high stress, but it's moderate. So usually it's men needing to be told what women need. So today I'm going to flip flop it to start off with. Okay, women, we need to listen to what men need. And through this biologically, they need different things than we do. So the one thing that's different about men is that when they are working, they're always solving problems. Not saying we don't, but that's their main job. They're always solving problems. And when they're solving problems, they're lowering and losing testosterone. Okay, so when they come home, they usually, I don't know, sometimes just want to sit or watch TV, read the paper, do something where it isn't having to use their minds at all. Well, and we're like, why aren't you helping us? Help with the kids, or help with dinner, or help with, why aren't you? Well, it's because their testosterone is too low. And what they need, and we need to understand this, is they need to relax. They need that time to recharge, re-energize themselves so the testosterone grows back up. And I'm talking about like whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you all decide, because that has to be built up for them to want to do things that we need willingly. Now, if we are like, yeah, I'll let you do that, and put shame and junk on them, that does not do anything for them. So they need to have that time to build it back up, and then we can ask them for what we need. So that's something, usually we put different meanings on that. Well, they don't love me, or they don't think I'm important, or some kind of message and meaning. We put meaning, we're a meaning making machine. We put meaning on everything. The meaning is they need downtime, and they're not gonna want to listen to us because we need to communicate that way. So when men's testosterone are down, there's warning signs of it. They're irritable, they're grumpy, they're disconnected, and they're silent. They don't want to have, they just kind of back away. They call it cave time sometimes, but it's really them needing that time to build themselves back up. And it's really talking about to them how much time they need for that. Because men really need to be respected, and we need to really honor that, because that's most important to them. And what they need to hear from us is, when they are, you're right. What a great idea. Gosh, I wish I would have thought of that. We need to really build their confidence with small sayings, with small reactions, or small confirmations to them, because we tend not to do that. And the men, men in the room, you'll have to verify this or not, their most important job, is what they want to do, is make us happy. When we're happy, they are happy. And that, I know they have that funny saying, and I forget what it is. Happy. And it's true. Yeah. That is really what they want to do. Because if we're not happy, they're going to be using their problem solving. They're going to want to solve the problem. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, they want to solve it. And so we're like, why aren't you talking to me? Well, they're also trying to figure out what's going to make us happy. But we're not going to tell you because you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
Right? So it gets really confusing, but it's biological. I want you to hear that's biological. So it's one thing when you go home to really decide, do I really need to honor that time, let them have the time to relax. And again, I'm not talking about all day, I'm not talking about, but they really need to build that back up.
To jump on the biological, I mean, that makes me think also, if it's important to know the predominant style in which your partner interacts with the world. So what I mean is, are they more of an introvert or an extrovert? So now you take that, and now let's say your spouse is an introvert. Now you have someone who really is draining. And an introvert, extrovert is simply a way of looking at how we refuel and how we drain. So there's lots of myths about that. Extroverts are confident, and introverts are aloof, and none of those things are true. We just simply look at it like someone who is an introvert is drained with social interaction, drained with activity, and they need to refill the tank with more quiet. An extrovert is someone who is charged up and pumped and fueled with interaction and is drained by a lot of quiet. So, we work a lot with couples who not only are we dealing with biological differences, but we are also dealing with innate personality type differences. There's a lot of conflict if you're not understanding what drains and fills up your partner as well. So being aware and mindful of that.
And one thing that fills them up too is to go out with guy time. They need guy time. Because women, what we are tending to do is we're turning our husbands into our girlfriends. We don't want our husbands to be our girlfriends, because if they're our girlfriends, they're going to be emotional, they're going to be low self-confidence, and their security goes down. So we want them to relate to us all the time, and it's not how they're wired. So we need to really honor that and let them know, and let them have their time and build their testosterone up, because we want strong, confident men in our life. But what we tend to do is really kind of nay that, kind of push that aside. Okay, so for women, how we are different, we're quite different. So what we're going to do in a stressful day, we're going to get our testosterone up. We're going to get it up, so we're going to become more independent. So we tend to get more independent. We get busy. We get anxious, and we want connection during that time. That we want to talk. We just want to talk. And the guys when they're stressed, right? They want to go silent. So right there, if you've both had a stressful day, it's going to be a mess. So we want to talk. So we have to really understand that we can talk to our spouses, but we need to give them a limited amount of time with it. Whether it's 10 minutes, 3 times a week to have that deep conversation. You can't always schedule it that way, but to have it be important enough that it's there. But then we need to go to our sisters, moms, or girlfriends to talk for the rest of it. We need to process that. So for relationships, we want to connect and we want to talk, but for men, they're not so much needing that from us. And I had one girlfriend say that her husband said, just give me the cliff notes of the situation. So that's something you do not want to say to us. Like, you do not, that's a no. So things that you can say to us, because we aren't really that complicated. People are saying, oh, women are so complicated. We are not. We want one thing, we want love. Love can be defined by see us, listen to us, touch us, equals romance. See, hear, touch. There you go, see, hear, touch, that's it. So see us mainly means to tell us we're beautiful, you love us, we're unconditionally loved. You are special, you are the most important person in my life. That's the seeing part. The listening part is just during the time when we're processing, because we're process, you just need to listen. And your job, because you're going to want to fix something, is you're fixing, not talking. You don't want to talk, you don't want to fix unless we ask. So just say a couple of lines that men can use is, tell me more. Help me understand, or is there anything I can do? And again, that's all we need, because we're smart enough that we're usually fixing our own problems, but we just want to talk about it. And we want to tell you what color, what size, where we were. We want to tell you the whole details. And you really just want the cliff notes, right? They really do. So again, the most important thing that we want is love and romance. And if your main goal or job is to make us happy, those are just some things that one can do to make us happy. And when you touch us, it's oxytocin increases for us. So even when we're stressed, if you touch us, the oxytocin is the chemical that makes us feel good. And if you want us to feel good and for us to be happy, those are just the 3 things that we need. Be seen, heard, and touched. And with that, I think what we do is when we understand that, we both can be balanced, healthy people. But if we don't understand that, we're going to want our husbands to be our girlfriends. We, again, talk too much. We get disconnected. We say they don't love us. And all these messages go through our minds. Because as Cheryl was saying, in the beginning of a relationship, we are crazy in love, right? We cannot stop being with them. We cannot stop being on the phone with them for hours. And this is how they were when we first met. Well, that's dopamine. Our dopamine is that link up there. So dopamine is a drug. It's almost like a natural cookie. It's up there. So when it comes down, and usually when you get married, we go into the serotonin. Serotonin is what makes us feel good, calm, happy, just peaceful. But we're like, I like that feeling. How do I get back up there? Oh, did I choose the wrong person? What's the problem? Did I not love you? No, it's usually because it's unconditional love. And unconditional love produces that serotonin and oxytocin for women. That's why we tend to go to babies and pets, because that produces oxytocin and serotonin for us. For men, children tend to lower their testosterone. So people say, well, our sex life went down. That's not the child's fault. It's our chemical makeup that has caused that. So too many times, relationships are like stuck there, but there are things that you can do to increase the dopamine. So that's a good thing, that it's not like, oh, it's gone. There's things, when we're mindful of it, we can do to create that high again. And that's what we want, and that's the passionate part of the relationship. Now, a magical tip I want to leave in this part is, it feels very simple, and it's not, because it can be difficult, but something that's very magical when people know it is that appreciation is magical in relationships, no matter what kind of relationship you're in. Whether it's your spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your coworkers, that once you start appreciating someone, your attitude and your chemical in your body is going to change. So I had a couple, literally, they've been married 30 years, they came in, she was done. When she was done, he was like, uh-oh, I don't want to be done, what do I need to do? Never been in counseling before, no really self-awareness of what they needed to do. So in the one session, she said, I'm kind of done. He's like, I don't want to be done. I've been a jerk, I'm a jerk. How can I not be a jerk? What do I need to do? So I saw them individually just for one session. Basically told them, stop being a jerk. You need to look at your wife and appreciate her, seeing, touching, listening to her, and not saying anything that's negative. 3 weeks later, I wasn't sure if they were coming back. I mean, it was really bad. They came in like giggling little kids. And it just really kind of, it did shock me. And she said,